Welcome, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Co-Girls on Air, a podcast exploring all things technology, female leadership, careers, education, and topics within the nonprofit sector. On this episode, we will be interviewing Kate Adams, who is the founder of Coconut Consulting and a volunteer here at Co-Girls. She was formerly a part of Amplitude, a Series A startup, and spent 7 years there on various teams, including technical support, product management, customer success, and implementation, before starting her business. So let's join Ashley and Kate to hear more about her story.
All right, welcome, Kate. Thank you for our podcast. Thank you for being here today. So, can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yes, be happy to. So I'm Kate Adams. I am the founder of Coconut Consulting. So I work with early stage startup founders. So really anyone building software, maybe have below 20 employees. And I assist them with creating, how do you create a product roadmap? How do you make sure you're building the right things for the users they're trying to go after? And really anything that falls in that area. And then prior to founding my own business, I worked at Amplitude, which was a B2B analytics company. And I worked there from when they were a Series A, very tiny startup, all the way through their IPO 7 years after that.
Wow, that's incredible. Can you tell us what your favorite thing about your job is?
Yeah, I'd say my favorite is I really like technology. So it's really fun to learn about all the different apps and platforms that are out there in the world that are trying to be built into these much larger companies. And so I just really like learning. It's really great to be able to partner with all of these different founders, and there's very inspiring people to work with too. So I'd say that's probably my favorite.
Cool. And what would you say was your inspiration to get you into this field?
I'd say it actually is my dad. He is a startup founder and has always started new tech businesses ever since I was 2 years old. And so at first I thought he was always crazy, and it's like, oh, I never want to go into that field. He's just always doing computer stuff is what he called it. Mm-hmm. And then as I got older, I realized I was like, oh, this is actually really interesting, being on the cutting edge of technology, and no one knows where he's going to go, and it's just very exciting and new. So I think he got me started. But then really I got to do a lot of internships, and really a lot of companies who want interns, they don't know these small startups don't know what they're doing. And they're like, sure, you want to intern for us? Okay. We don't know how to, run a podcast or, run a marketing channel. And so I got to work with a lot of different startups because they didn't have anyone else do it. So I just jumped in and then realized I really, really liked working at those types of companies.
Wow. That's crazy. Were you always interested in this field? Like, even kind of growing up, did you see yourself taking a path that would go this way, or did you think about doing other things?
I was actually most interested in being an interior designer or an architect. I do have a creative side, but I kind of like that there's some sort of math or structure around it. Like, that would be a horrible graphic designer or artist. I mean, I can't just build things from scratch, but that's where I like interior design and architecture have those constraints around the creativity. But then in the end, just tech kind of called to me. And then I feel like I still can have that creative side because I do partner with like UX designers and, are helping come up with the constraints that we need for the software we're building. So I feel like I still can scratch that itch in that way. And then, outside of work, I love decorating my house. So I do, my house is always being redone and new things being added. So I get to do, flex my creativity in that way outside of work too.
Oh, that's so cool. Love that. As a woman in the tech industry, did you encounter any like hardships or what was that experience like, especially in a more male-dominated field?
Yes, I'd say definitely the vast majority of people I work with are men, and usually men that are older than me too. So I think one kind of anecdote is I noticed that initially when I was 22, I first started at Amplitude, and I was on the tech support team. And so I was trained as an expert in the Amplitude product. So I knew everything about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I still would have some customers write in who were male engineers saying, nope, Amplitude's broken. I'm having issues with these things. And I said, oh, no, actually, here's how it's supposed to work. And they would say, no, you're wrong. This is how it should be working. I say, no. And, I'd have to, since they were the customer, couldn't say, no, actually, I know what I'm talking about. So it was, I had to learn very quickly in my career how to still advocate for myself and show that I am the expert and I know what I'm talking about, while also not hurting other people's feelings. Because then I feel like in the end too, then they would just be like, oh, I don't like her, I don't want to work with her. And so I think it was kind of a good lesson on how to be very tactful about it and share that I am an expert and how can I still collaboratively work with these people who might not really believe me initially just because of my gender. So it definitely is tough sometimes, but I feel like as women, we're very resilient and can learn how to be very tactful about the way we go about it and try to kind of play chess in that manner with how to deal with it.
Yeah, that's very inspirational for us gals out there. So thank you for helping us all on that way.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for any girls out there who have an entrepreneurial spirit or are looking for leadership roles? I know you've been volunteering with us at Code Girls since 2021, is correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So I've seen you in the classroom, and it's really great to have that kind of mentorship and that inspiration, especially for these young girls.
Mm-hmm.
What's some advice that you can give?
Yeah, I would say for these girls and young women, just know that you have everything that you need inside of you. It's really just about building confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that we do a great job of with young boys. We tell them, you're so strong and powerful and you're always right and go out there and conquer. But I feel like the same just isn't instilled in young girls for, just different societal reasons and the culture that we've been brought up in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that just knowing that you are just as smart as the boys, you are just as powerful as they are, and just because they say they know everything and state things like a fact, even if it's not correct, you can, you don't have to do the same, but just keep that in mind where you're not lesser than, or you're not not as smart or not as powerful just because of your gender. You actually are, and you're just maybe underestimated. So I think just go out and prove people wrong, and you are a very powerful person.
Yeah, believing in yourself is a big part of that battle, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what made you decide to branch out and start your own business? I mean, that must have come with some challenges and some excitement and some fear and everything all together. So what got you on board?
Yeah, it was a big decision because Amplitude was my first job and was my only job at that point too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really didn't know anything else. But I had a couple other colleagues who had left Amplitude and started consulting on their own. So it was really cool to talk to them and kind of learn a little bit more about the blueprint. And I thought it was a really good idea because I was just feeling very burnt out at work. I was not interested in the company politics, and it wasn't fun for me anymore. I really missed the early days of the company where everything was fun and it was exciting and we didn't know how long we were going to last as a business. So it was who cares? Let's just try it. and once the company was a public company, there is no who cares? You have stakeholders and a stock price, and there was so much more pressure. And I just realized that it was just taking too much of a toll on me and just was not the type of work I was interested in anymore. Okay. So it took me probably a year to realize, okay, I actually need to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And once I did, I knew that I was not ready to interview for another full-time job. That sounded like a horrible idea. I was I cannot prep usually for product manager roles. It's a really intensive interview process. You have to do lots of case studies, and I was I cannot fathom trying to prep for that right now. So, and I was about to get married too. It was planning a wedding and
wow.
going to go on a honeymoon. So yeah, I don't want to start a full-time job.
Yeah.
And so then I thought that consulting was a great way for me to start working with startups again, which I was like how I started in tech, and I really missed that. But it allowed me to have more boundaries with work where I really only work 20, 30 hours a week. I'm just very strict with my time and I get paid for my time. And rather than usually when you join a startup, it's 60 plus hour weeks. It's really crazy. It's a grind because everyone's trying to make sure the company doesn't fall apart within a day and go out of business. There's a lot of pressure. It's high stakes. So this was kind of my creative way of being able to get involved with startups, but not have to sell my soul and have my whole entire life be about keeping the company alive. I could help, but then kind of keep my distance a little bit.
So you have do you feel like you have a good balance, good work-life balance?
Yes, I think it's always an evolving skill, and I still struggle with it all the time too. But I definitely feel like it's I have a much better work-life balance now because I'm able to say no to projects. Or if a client's like, "Oh, we want you to help us with this area," I say, "Okay, well, I can just say no. I'm only going to be focusing on this area," and they just have to say okay, because if I was a full-time employee, you don't really have the luxury of being able to say no, because then someone has to do it. But then also I can say, yes, I can help with that, but you're going to have to pay me more. And then I'm compensated based on my time, which I really like because then that shows me too, my time is worth the amount of money. I can't just work infinitely for, the same amount of money. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can you tell us something you wish that you knew before getting started in your career? You could share?
Yeah, I'd say a big one is that networking is super important. I think that I was under the misconception that when looking for your first internship or job, you should just apply to as many random applications on the internet that you can find. And, I applied to hundreds of jobs that way.
Wow.
And then heard back from less than 1% of those. So it really was not a great use of my time. And I see a lot of friends. And even my youngest sister just graduated from college and is looking for her first job too. I think that's what people are taught to do. You just apply to jobs online. But I think that it's actually a way more efficient use of your time if you focus on building relationships in the industry and just learning from people who are in jobs that you think you want, because they can open the doors to like, oh yeah, I really like you. I want to invest in you. Maybe I'll just open a role on my team and hire you. People like to hire people. They're not. Well, it's not always just about having the need first. Sometimes people are like, well, I just want to hire a good team, so I'll find a way to bring you on. And I think that you can just learn so much from talking to others who are in the jobs that you think you like, because then you can hear what their true day-to-day is like, and you're like, oh, actually, I have no interest in that whatsoever. Or you can kind of get a more honest answer from them on what it's really like. And so I think for me, my biggest advice for starting out your career is network as much as you can. Go on LinkedIn, find people who grew up in the same town as you, who went to your same high school, who went to the same college as you, where you both love soccer, or just find any tiny common thread and just reach out. I think especially is helpful for young women who are in college, and if you reach out to people who went to your school, you have a very high likelihood that they're going to respond to you, because everyone wants to help out students. I think it's a little bit harder once you get older. Like I'm 30 now, people are like, oh, some random 30-year-old woman just reached out to me, and you don't have to respond. Or if it's, a 19-year-old student, you're like, oh yeah, I really want to help them. So I think if you're a young student, I definitely use that to your advantage, because everyone who you're reaching out to, they probably have done the same thing before. They've been in your shoes, and they want to give back and help pay it forward. So I think that's a huge area that's really overlooked, because it's kind of scary putting yourself out there and reaching out to people and saying, hey, I would love help. Like you're being very vulnerable, but I think people really appreciate that. And then that's how I found all of the internships that I had. They were not most of them weren't real internships posted online. It was just through people I met on random like field trips in school and things like that. And that's how I find all of my clients today too. Just all people I know or like friends of friends. And I think a lot of people just underestimate how powerful that really can be.
Yeah, building a network. And would you say that you feel that most people are willing to be forthcoming and sharing like their knowledge or their experiences and things like that?
Oh yeah, especially if you're reaching out. I would just say, hey, I think you have a really fascinating career. I'm really impressed by what you've built with your career. I would love to learn more about how you did that because I want to. I want to do something similar. People are very flattered, like, "Oh, really?" Like, and then when you get them on the phone, you just ask them a million questions about themselves, and people love talking about themselves. And this is what I'm doing the whole podcast. So it's really easy to get people talking, and then you get to learn so much, and then you build a connection with them, and then who knows? Maybe if nothing happens, like even a year from now, you see that they're doing something interesting, and you reach back out, or they did hire, or they are hiring a new person for their team, and then you say, "Hey, we talked a few months ago. I'm actually really interested in this role. Do you think I'd be a good fit?" And then you're then now at the top of the stack compared to the hundreds, if not thousands, of other people who have just blind applied online, and there's no face to the name, there's no history, there's no background, and so you can really. I'm all about like breaking the rules and trying to like outsmart the system. So that's my like biggest way of doing that is so you can stand out from others in the stack.
Okay. And in your experiences going through the building relationships and building these networks, did you ever have any mentors or anyone that specifically you can think of that might have helped you on your journey?
Oh, yes. I've had a lot of informal mentors and then like a few more formal ones too of people who just were like, I'm going to take you under my wing. I really want to help you out because I wish I had someone do that for me or I did have someone do that for me and it was so valuable. So I definitely had a couple of those people early in my career and I was able to go to them every time I was, negotiating my salary or trying to get a promotion or had a difficult situation with a boss. I could go to that mentor and say, hey, I'm so upset. Here's I'm thinking about it. How can I, try to be more rational and like make an argument for this? And they would, help like we would even like role play. They would pretend to be my manager and I would practice like my points and that I was going to try to get across, without getting too upset and, how could I like control my voice and, just like small things that are really helpful to learn early on in your career. Or even just like working on some projects. I had a couple of teammates where let's say, hey, I'm flying to a customer for the first time ever. What do you do when you meet with them in person? Like, what do you do? Like, what do you say? You need to like have something really important to say if you're, willing to go fly to take them out to lunch. And I had coworkers help me out with that and really walk me through. Okay, well, first you want to take them to lunch. Don't talk about business at all. And then if you're only meeting for lunch, maybe talk about business for like the last 10 minutes, but make it super casual. And it's more about, okay, we'll negotiate. Like we can talk more about this, like when we reconnect. It's more about getting the FaceTime and just building a connection with them. And it's less about actually teaching them something or getting the job done. And so I wouldn't have known any of that without mentors. I would have gone into the lunch, sat down. I'm a very direct communicator. And I said, okay, thank you for joining me for lunch. So we're going to talk through this contract now. And it would have been a horrible lunch.
It would have been done in like 20 minutes.
Yes. And they would say, okay, can I leave? Or instead I was able to say, oh, like you have kids. Like, oh, like that's so cool that you grew up in this part of the country. And it's just about, building that human connection, which is very similar to my point with networking. I think it's just trying to see everyone as humans and just trying to build relationships and connections. It just goes so much further. And I think you can be so much more successful in, whatever you're trying to do because people then want to do business with you. They want to work with you. They want to hire you.
What do you think that someone would need to be successful in your position or starting a company or just kind of putting themselves out there in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I think you need to be totally okay with failure and redefining failure. Just, if you want to start a company, you just have to say to yourself, well, what's the worst that can happen? I say for 3 months, like, hey, everyone, I started this new business and I'm, trying these things out. And then if it doesn't work, then you just stop talking about it. And then sometimes people don't remember. And, it's really not, it's really scary when you're doing that yourself. But then I feel like in hindsight, you're like, oh yeah, it was a cool learning experience. And I think trying to view things as just a way to learn, and it's to like, what's the worst can happen, and just keep it with that lens, I think is really valuable. I think that a lot of times I'll see, founders of companies, some like you, I mean, you do have need to take it seriously, but I think sometimes people take it way too seriously, or then completely let their health go, and they're just not happy, don't hang out with friends, they don't get outside. And I think that you need to look at, are you do you like your life? Are you, is this business like a positive aspect of your life? And are people around you, do they like see that you are happier, or is this business actually making your life worse? So I think that's a really important part that a lot of people overlook, because they can kind of get all wrapped up in, oh well, I need to make this work because everyone's going to see if I don't. And it's really like people usually don't actually care that much and don't think about you as much as you think about you. So they probably won't even notice. So I think it's just, being an entrepreneur, it's extremely important to be willing to risk everything, be willing to fail, but most importantly, looking at everything as there's a cool, interesting learning opportunity.
And would you say just kind of sticking with it, or, keeping going and not giving up? Like, is that a big part of it too?
Yes, I'd say that's probably like the standard advice is like, oh, you've got it, like just keep pushing. But then I worry that sometimes that becomes like the only thing that people focus on. And then that's when like the rest of their life can really take a hit. And then maybe it's not even worth to keep going. So I think it's like keep going, but also surround yourself with people who build you up and can also like echo back how you're feeling. So just like really good friends and family and colleagues, where they can say, hey, actually you shouldn't keep going. Right. It's time to wind this down. And even when you don't want to admit that yet, even if you know it's true deep down.
Yeah. So having that extra set of eyes and listening to what's going on and maintaining that happy human figure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, okay, as far as your experience with Code Girls with us here, can you tell us a little bit about that? And if you have any stories or any specific experiences that you can tell us about?
Yes. So I first heard about Code Girls, I believe it was in 2021. I was looking at the Columbia Falls Chamber of Commerce events calendar. I don't remember why. And I saw there was a meeting about Code Girls. And I was like, oh, what is that? And so then I went to the Code Girls website and started reading more about it. And then I reached out to Marianne and said, hey, like I work in tech and I'm really interested. I really want to find like a volunteer opportunity. I'm super interested. And so then I started working with the girls, I think that spring. And I was actually got to work with the tech trio, the Golden Children of Code Girls. And I came in the second semester, so they had already spent the first semester learning MIT App Inventor, all of the coding lessons. And so then the second semester was all about creating their new app that they were going to take to the competition. So they were building the app, but then also working on the business plan. And especially since I was not a part of the lessons of how to, do the coding in MIT App Inventor, I was like, I had absolutely no idea how to help you build an app, but they were more than capable and really did not need my help anyways. And I was like, but what I love to do is write business plans. I haven't necessarily needed to write one for, any of my clients or while at Amplitude, because I usually kind of come in like a little bit later. But as a product manager, that I'm basically writing mini business plans every time I'm trying to advocate for, I think we should build this feature or we should build this add-on product. And then I have to make the whole case on, well, what is the problem that I want to solve for this customer group? What is extremely necessary for the future to be successful? What are our metrics that we're going to use to understand if we're successful? And how much is it going to cost us? How much engineering time is it going to take? How much money do we think we can make in the market by releasing this? So just all of that whole thought process, and even doing all the user research to back up these points. That's really what the girls were doing in the business plan. And I was so excited because I was like, I do this at work all the time. This is such a relevant skill, and it's something that I know how to help you with. And so I had a blast partnering with them on the business plan, and their app and business plan was so great that they won the competition for the state of Montana and got to go compete in DC. So that was so cool to see. It was just so much fun. Really helping them with the business part. And I think it's really fun that now that I think it's coming up on my 4th year with Code Girls, just getting to try to relate some of the things we're learning in the classroom to say, I know you probably think I'm so old that I have a job, not even just like in high school or college, but I'm beyond that.
Not too old.
Yeah. And here's how, like, what you're learning, as at age 12 through like 18, here's how this actually is a really foundational, like, building block that can help you so much in, 10, 20 years as you are starting your career or just in college and trying to pick a major and what you're interested in. So it's really fun for me to be able to look back and see them doing this at such an early age, because I did not have that. I, tried to do some computer camps as a kid, but I was the only girl, and the boys wouldn't include me, and, I had a completely different experience. So watching them get to build, unicorn themed apps and like everything has like rainbow sprinkles on it and just things that they're interested in is like so inspiring. And I'm so glad I get to be a part of it, because it's something that I wish I had when I was their age.
Yeah, me too. And then can you tell us, you touched a little bit on being a project manager and what that looks like. Can you tell us a little bit about that as a career path and how that surrounds tech?
Yes. So I'm a product manager, which is a little bit different from project management. But for project management is kind of like a more broad term that's in like a lot of different industries. Where within product management, there is a small element of project management and making sure that projects are delivered on time. But the biggest part of it, I would say, is setting the strategy for the business.
Okay.
So within a tech company, there's usually a product manager, a UX designer, and then probably a couple of engineers that are organized together in a small team. The bigger the company, the more of those like small teams. We think a lot of times people call it a pod.
Okay.
So there can be tons of different pods within a like massive company. And the product manager's job is to make sure that they are balancing what are the needs of the business, what are we seeing in the market, what are our competitors doing, how can we make money, from listening to our design partners, what can we build? What's like the ideal world that we can create for our customers? And then listening to the software engineers, what is technically feasible? What are we able to build in this certain time constraint? And so the product manager's job is to balance all 3 of these pillars and find what's something that makes sense for our business, what's something that we are able to technically build from an engineering standpoint, and what's something that's really a beautiful, exciting experience for our customers from the design standpoint. And it's a lot of running around the business trying to get approvals from leadership and the higher ups and all of the other teams within the company that can be affected, and trying to get them all on board and extremely excited about what you're trying to really sell them on. Because you could just strong arm everyone and be like, nope, we're building this and just do it. But you're not going to get very far, because then you need all these other teams to, want to help market the product for you or to help build partnerships with other companies because you built this feature. So it's really important to just have everyone's buy-in, and you want leadership to be aligned that this is an extremely important thing for the business to do. Because that's how you make sure that what you're working on is aligned to the company's strategy overall and their multi-year strategy. And that's how I would describe product in a nutshell. But there's a lot in there.
A lot of pieces to it.
Yes.
Okay. Kind of almost like a ringleader of a circus in a way.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. It's a lot of cat herding.
Yeah.
Under one project I had, I counted there were 20 different stakeholders. So there were 20 people I needed to keep in the loop and make sure that they were excited and bought in and happy about this proposal of the software that we were trying to build. And so it's, lots of different people you're working with. You have to have, that's why I think like as a woman, I think one of my strong suits is communication and collaboration. And I think that's actually really helpful as a product manager, because then I make sure that I'm constantly over communicating, and people probably get sick of all the extra messages and emails I'm sending. But I'm like, hey, you can't get mad at me and say you had no idea this was happening,
Right.
because it is very well communicated. And then that way you can bring more people along in the process too. And you can come up with an even better solution in the end when you're making sure you're working with all of the right people, because they can say, like one time I had, the legal team came in at the end and were like, what? We can't build that. Like, we have all these legal constraints. I was like, I had no idea. We've been building this for 3 months. How do we figure this out? And so the next time I was like, okay, legal first person looped in. What are some of the considerations? That's just like one small example that happened so many times with all of these different teams that needed to be incorporated. And so it's just, communication is so key, and just being very organized and communicating to people in a way that they can digest too.
Okay.
I send them a massive wall of text or, a 10-page document. Say, let me know what you think by tomorrow. They're not going to let you know. And that does not count. You're like, well, I sent it to them. They never got back to me. So I can move on. It's like, well, no, you need to send a very digestible, to the point, like executive summary, and share like, why do we need to do this? What is the underlying problem? What are the impacts for us as a business? And trying to make that very clear. And I think that is a really important part of all that communication as well.
And that plays into so many areas of business and life, all across the board. Communication is key.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most important.
Most important is probably you really need to just do what makes you happy. I think there's a lot of external ways of measuring success in your career. It's like what your parents imagined you would always become, like a lawyer, a doctor, those different things, or like what all your friends are doing. Like for me, in college, most of my friends wanted to go into banking, finance, accounting. And I was like, well, that sounds great, but I personally can't stand those classes that I have. And so I was like, well, I think I need to stay true to myself and not go after one of those careers. And I realized, like I mentioned earlier, like I was really passionate about tech and really wanted to try that out. But it was really, really hard to break into it initially, because I had to manually go figure out how to build connections in that industry, especially I was on the East Coast, and trying to make these connections in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, where I didn't know anyone there, was definitely really difficult. But I think it was important to me because it was something that I was really passionate about, and I wanted to do something that I really liked. Versus what was expected of me, or what all my peers were doing, or what looked like to be the most glamorous career. And I think in the end, I've been a lot happier for it. And a lot of my friends who did go after those other careers that sounded a lot more prestigious, they really hated their jobs and were not happy. And some of them said to me, like, wow, you knew what you were doing. I had no idea. And I was like, well, it was kind of an accident. Like, I didn't know that tech was going to be the perfect career for me. It really just worked out that way. But I think it's just important to make your own decisions, not worry about what other people think about you, and just do what makes you happy, because that's what really matters at the end of the day. It's your career. You're the one who has to go do that job every single day.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate you talking with us and giving us your experience and advice. And we look forward to seeing all the things that you continue to do with your new business, and having you volunteer with us tomorrow.
Yes, thank you so much. This has been such an honor to be on Code Girls podcast. It's an organization very near to my heart, and it's really fun to volunteer with you all.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Next week on Co-Girls on Air,
you have to be mentally and emotionally strong. And EQ, to me, emotional intelligence, is the most incredible thing. Combine that with logic, and that makes a great venture capitalist.